Once upon a time, in the unlikeliest corners of our lives, love has a way of sneaking in like a whisper in the wind. This tale weaves through the threads of companionship, unwavering loyalty, and that fragile boundary where innocent affection blossoms into fervent desire, into something profound and undeniable. I never imagined my closest confidant could stir such turmoil within me. When she first hinted at it, I dismissed it as her usual playful banter, a light-hearted tease between old friends. I chuckled, brushing it off as absurdity. But that evening, under the glow of city lights filtering through the window, her gaze held a fire I'd overlooked for years, and I knew it was no jest. What unfolded next reshaped the very foundation of our world, turning the familiar into the extraordinary. Friendship, in its essence, is a subtle alchemy. It simmers beneath the surface, unnoticed until it becomes an integral part of your existence. For me, that irreplaceable soul was Mia. We crossed paths in our junior year of university, amid the chaos of a bustling campus. She was the vibrant force, the one who lit up rooms with her infectious energy, who could negotiate free drinks at bars and rally a crowd for impromptu adventures. I, conversely, was the introspective type, lingering on the edges, absorbing the nuances of interactions, cherishing quiet moments, and offering smiles that were warm but restrained. Our contrasting natures somehow forged a perfect harmony. From marathon cram sessions in dimly lit libraries to spontaneous road trips under starry skies, we cultivated a connection that was effortless, profound, and unbreakable. Mia became my anchor during storms of doubt, and I was her quiet harbor when her bravado wavered. By graduation, our alliance felt eternal, akin to siblings bound by choice rather than blood. So, when that fateful Thursday evening ambushed me, it shattered my complacency like a sudden thunderclap. It was meant to be a routine hangout, nothing out of the ordinary. I arrived at her cozy loft with bags brimming with Chinese takeout, steaming dumplings, spicy noodles, and fortune cookies for good measure, the aroma wafting through the corridor like an invitation. She flung open the door with her trademark beam, her curly auburn hair tousled from a day of creative frenzy, wearing an oversized sweater that swallowed her frame and fuzzy slippers that mismatched in color. "Enter, O bearer of sustenance," she exclaimed theatrically, ushering me in with a flourish. I shook my head, depositing the feast on her cluttered kitchen island. "Heroes don't deliver for free, you know." She laughed, already rummaging in the fridge for chilled sodas. "Your reward, eternal gratitude and the best company in town." We settled into our ritual, plates piled high, a cheesy rom-com queued up on her streaming service, one we'd mocked and rewatched countless times. Mia lounged on the sectional sofa, legs draped over the armrest while I perched more neatly, mindful of crumbs on her throw pillows. As the film's predictable plot unfolded with characters bumbling through misunderstandings, Mia stretched languidly, her foot nudging my thigh incidentally. She left it there. I didn't shift away. "Ever ponder the road ahead?" She mused abruptly, her voice laced with an unusual gentleness amid the on-screen antics. I turned to her puzzled. "Like career paths? Or where we'll end up living?" She tilted her head, eyes sparkling under the lamp's soft light. "Nah, more personal. If we're both still flying solo at, say, 40, we should seal a deal." "A deal?" I echoed, intrigued yet wary. "Yeah," she replied, her smile widening but her tone earnest. "We tie the knot or whatever. Be each other's fallback plan." The proposition lingered like a charged cloud. She was grinning, but beneath the playfulness lurked authenticity. I mustered a snort, lobbing a napkin her way. "You're delusional." She snatched it midair, undeterred. "Think about it. We've got the dirt on each other's quirks. No need for the dating gauntlet when we've already got the perfect match right here." My stomach knotted. "Mia, that's the soda talking. Lay off the caffeine." She shrugged, redirecting her focus to the screen. But the absence of her usual retort spoke volumes. In that quiet interlude, my pulse thrummed erratically. Leaving her place that night, sleep evaded me. I tossed in bed, her words replaying like a looped melody. Be each other's fallback plan. I convinced myself it was harmless ribbing, that she hadn't intended depth. Yet the intensity in her eyes, the subtle shift in her demeanor gnawed at me, I dissected the evening, the casual graze of her foot, the electric hum on my skin, the hollowness in my forced amusement. Why did it unsettle me so? Because buried deep, I harbored the same unspoken truth. It transcended jest, and what frightened me was my own reluctance to dismiss it entirely. Come Friday morning, I trudged to our go-to brunch spot, a quaint diner with checkered tablecloths and bottomless coffee. Mia was already ensconced in our booth, nursing a mug of black brew, her expression a mix of mischief and concern. "You look wrecked," she observed as I slid in opposite her. "Rough night?" "Something like that," I grumbled, signaling for a refill. She arched an eyebrow. "Dreaming of grand adventures? Or me?" It was her classic flirtatious quip, but today it landed differently. Warmth flooded my cheeks. I averted my gaze, feigning interest in the menu. She caught the flush, her teasing grin wavering momentarily. I coughed out a laugh. "In your dreams." But inwardly, a pang echoed. Perhaps she wasn't far off. The day proceeded in our habitual fashion, wandering through a local farmer's market, debating the merits of organic produce, then retreating to her loft for board games that devolved into competitive chaos. Yet an undercurrent pulsed through it all. Each shared glance stretched longer. Accidental brushes ignited sparks. During a particularly heated round of Scrabble, her hand overlapped mine as we vied for the same tile. I recoiled not from aversion, but from the jolt that coursed through me. She paused, her eyes questioning, but voiced nothing. Her usual smirk evolved into a tender regard I couldn't decipher. As evening drew near and I prepared to depart, I hesitated at the threshold. Words bubbled up, queries about her sincerity, but they dissolved unspoken. "Catch you soon," I managed. She flashed her lopsided smile. Always. For the first time, always carried an ambiguity that unnerved me. The ensuing days amplified the shift. It was insidious at first, a whisper of change I attributed to paranoia, but reality manifested in my heightened sensitivity to her proximity. My breath hitched when her shoulder grazed mine in a crowded cafe. My heart raced at her lingering stares during conversations. We met midweek at a park for a picnic, sprawled on a blanket under sprawling oaks. Mia unpacked sandwiches with flair, narrating a hilarious mishap from her job as a graphic designer. I tried to engage, but my focus wandered. The sunlight dancing in her curls, the animated gestures of her hands, the melodic cadence of her voice. She noticed my distraction midway through her tale. "Earth to you," she teased, waving a chip in my face. "Lost in thought?" My voice caught. "Just appreciating the view." Her cheeks tinted pink, and for a beat, our eyes locked in unspoken understanding. The unease crescendoed over the weekend. Saturday found us at an art exhibit she dragged me to, her passion for colors and forms infectious. As we navigated the galleries, her arm linked through mine. "To avoid getting separated," she claimed. The contact was familiar, yet now it thrummed with potential. In a quiet alcove surrounded by abstract canvases, she turned to me. "This piece reminds me of us. Chaotic, but beautiful." Her words, innocent on the surface, stirred a whirlwind within. By Sunday evening, back at her loft for movie night, the air crackled. We opted for a thriller, dimming the lights for ambiance. Mia nestled closer on the couch, her head nearly on my shoulder. Her scent, vanilla and faint jasmine, enveloped me. Midway through a tense scene, she whispered, "This is nice, isn't it?" I nodded, words failing as her hand rested lightly on my knee. After the credits rolled, the room fell silent save for our breathing. She broke it first, her voice tentative. "Can I ask something real?" I met her gaze, heart pounding. "Shoot. Have you ever considered us as more?" The query pierced the veil. My throat constricted. "Mia, Vulnerability etched her features, stripping away her usual armor. The moment hung, electric. She attempted levity, pulling back with a forced chuckle. Kidding, obviously. Don't freak. But her eyes betrayed the lie. And in that vulnerability, I recognized my own unspoken yearnings. The days blurred into a tapestry of introspection. Her question echoed relentlessly. "Have you ever considered us?" Truth be told, fragments of such thoughts had flickered before. moments of jealousy when she dated others. The comfort of her presence that no one else matched. Admitting it jeopardized our sacred bond, the history we'd woven. Yet ignoring it felt like denying a part of myself. One evening, under a canopy of stars on her balcony, I finally found my voice. About what you said. I have thought about it. More than I should. Her eyes widened, a mix of hope and fear. And it scares me, I confessed. But maybe that's a sign it's worth exploring. In that admission, the blurry line sharpened into possibility. Love, after all, often blooms from the soil of friendship in places we least expect. And for Mia and me, what began as a pact in jest evolved into a promise of something deeper, passionate, real. I caught myself watching her more closely than I should. The way her laugh lit up the room, crinkling the corners of her eyes like delicate paper folding under pressure. The way her hand would casually drape over the armrest of the couch when we lounged together, fingers tapping out invisible rhythms to whatever song was stuck in her head. The way her scent, fresh lavender mixed with a hint of vanilla from her favorite shampoo, clung to my jacket after she'd borrowed it on a chilly evening walk. I hated how much I noticed these things. I hated how much I craved more of them, like an addiction I couldn't admit to myself. Her name was Elena, my best friend for the past 5 years. We'd met in college, bonding over late-night study sessions and shared disdain for our pretentious literature professor. Back then, it was all platonic. Easy laughs, inside jokes, and the kind of comfort that comes from knowing someone has your back no matter what. But lately things had shifted. Subtly at first, like a whisper in the wind, but now it was a roar I couldn't ignore. Was I imagining it? Or was there something brewing beneath the surface? Something that could upend our friendship forever? It was a Friday evening when the doubts hit hardest. I'd spent the afternoon at her cozy loft apartment downtown, helping her sort through a mountain of old boxes she'd been meaning to unpack since moving in 6 months ago. Moral support, she'd called it, but really, it meant I was the one hauling dusty relics from her past while she perched on the floor, curating a new playlist on her phone and tossing out commentary like confetti. "Look at this," she'd say, holding up a faded photo from high school, her grin wide and infectious. I had the worst hair phase ever. Promise you won't judge. By the time we finished, the place looked more lived in, less like a storage unit, but my mind was a whirlwind. As I gathered my things to leave, the sky outside her window had darkened ominously. Heavy clouds gathering like uninvited guests. Thunder rumbled in the distance, low and threatening, and within minutes, rain began to pelt the glass in relentless sheets. The wind picked up, howling through the narrow streets below, bending trees and scattering leaves like forgotten memories. "Looks like you're not going anywhere tonight," Elena said, peering out the window with a dramatic sigh. Lightning cracked across the sky, illuminating her face in stark white flashes. She turned to me, her dark hair falling loosely over one shoulder, eyes sparkling with that mix of mischief and warmth I'd come to adore. "You seriously gonna brave that? It's like the apocalypse out there." I chuckled, though my stomach twisted with a nervous energy I couldn't quite place. "I've driven in worse. It's just a little rain." But even as I said it, I knew I was bluffing. The roads would be slick, visibility near zero, and honestly, the thought of leaving her company felt wrong tonight. She arched an eyebrow, crossing her arms in that way she did when she knew she had the upper hand. "Uh-huh. And risk ending up in a ditch because you're too stubborn to crash here? Come on, Alex. Stay. We've got snacks, bad movies, and I promise not to hog all the blankets." I hesitated, my resolve crumbling under her gaze. There was something in her voice, playful on the surface, but laced with a quiet plea that made my heart skip. "All right, fine. You win this round." Her face brightened, and she darted to the linen closet, pulling out a couple of thick, fluffy blankets. "Slumber party activated!" We settled on the oversized couch in her living room, the one we'd picked out together at a flea market last summer. She draped one blanket over us, our legs tangling casually as we scrolled through streaming options. We picked some forgettable rom-com, the kind with predictable plots and over-the-top dialogue. But neither of us was really watching. Outside, the storm intensified, thunder booming like artillery, rain hammering the roof in a chaotic symphony. Wind rattled the windows, making the whole building creak in protest. But the real distraction wasn't the weather. It was her, the subtle press of her shoulder against mine under the shared blanket, warm and reassuring. The way her breath ghosted across my ear when she leaned in to murmur a snarky comment about the on-screen couple's absurd miscommunication. "Why don't they just talk? It's not that hard," she'd whisper, her voice low and intimate in the dim light. Every brush of her arm against mine sent sparks racing up my skin, my focus splintering into 1,000 pieces. I tried to play it cool, laughing at her jokes, but inside, I was a storm of my own, emotions swirling, questions thundering. We were about halfway through the movie when the lights began to flicker. Once, twice. Then, with a final sputter, the power cut out entirely. The TV blinked to black, the hum of the air conditioner silenced, leaving only the relentless roar of the storm outside. Darkness enveloped us, broken sporadically by flashes of lightning that painted the room in eerie blue hues. "Well?" Elena said after a moment, her voice soft and close in the shadows. "Guess it's officially just you and me now." There was a weight to her words, an undercurrent that made my pulse quicken. I turned toward her, my eyes adjusting to the gloom. The faint glow from the city lights outside filtered through the rain-streaked windows, casting a soft halo around her silhouette. Her eyes met mine, wide and shimmering, holding a vulnerability I'd rarely seen. Time seemed to stretch, the air between us thick with unspoken tension. "Elena," I began, my voice unsteady, rough around the edges from the knot in my throat. But she shifted closer, her breath warm against my skin. "You know," she whispered, her words barely audible over the thunder. "I wasn't kidding the other day. About us." My heart slammed to a halt. The other day, when we'd been out for coffee, and she'd made some offhand comment about how we were basically a couple without the label. I'd laughed it off then, too scared to probe deeper. Now, here in the dark, it felt like the world had narrowed to just this moment. Before I could form a response, she closed the gap. Her lips brushed mine, tentative, almost fragile, like she was testing the waters of a frozen lake, afraid it might crack beneath her. It wasn't a bold move, no fireworks or drama. It was honest, raw, laced with the fear of rejection. But I didn't pull away. Instead, I leaned into it, my hand finding her waist instinctively, pulling her closer as the kiss deepened. Slow at first, then building with an electric intensity that coursed through me like lightning. Her fingers threaded through my hair, and I could feel her trembling slightly, mirroring my own nerves. When we finally parted, both of us breathless, the storm outside seemed distant compared to the one raging in my chest. Elena's hand cupped my cheek, her thumb tracing gentle circles on my skin. Her eyes searched mine in the dim light, wide with uncertainty. "Tell me I didn't just screw everything up," she murmured, her voice cracking just a little. My throat tightened, emotions swelling like a tide. Words felt inadequate, but I forced them out. "You didn't screw up anything," I said, covering her hand with mine, holding it there like an anchor. "Not even close." Them out. "You didn't screw up anything," I said, covering her hand with mine, holding it there like an anchor. "Not even close." She studied me for a long moment, as if weighing the truth in my words. Then, relief flooded her features, softening the tension in her shoulders. "Really?" she asked, her voice small. I nodded, pulling her closer. "Yeah, really." She let out a shaky laugh, leaning her forehead against mine. Our breaths mingled in the space between us, sinking in a rhythm that felt natural, inevitable. "I've been wanting this for months," she confessed, her words tumbling out in a rush. "Ever since that road trip last spring, when we stayed up all night talking by the campfire, I kept thinking, what if? But I was terrified. What if it ruined our friendship? What if you didn't feel the same?" Tears pricked at my eyes, unexpected and hot. I swallowed hard, my own confessions rising to the surface. I felt it too, for longer than I want to admit. Watching you, noticing everything. It scared me. "But you're not going to lose me, Elena, not over this. Not ever." We stayed like that for what felt like an eternity. Foreheads touching, hands intertwined, the storm a distant backdrop to our quiet revelations. The rain continued its assault on the windows, but inside, A calm settled over us. The kind of peace that comes after years of unspoken longing finally finds its voice. When she kissed me again, there was no hesitation. It was sure, passionate, a promise wrapped in warmth. We shifted on the couch, pulling the blankets tighter around us as the night wore on. Hours passed in a blur of whispered stories from our past, shared dreams for the future, and stolen kisses that grew bolder with each one. I learned things about her I'd never known. How she'd always envied my confidence. How she'd written unsent letters in her journal about what-ifs involving us. In turn, I opened up about my fears. The walls I'd built around my heart after past heartbreaks, and how she'd been the one to chip away at them without even trying. As the storm began to wane in the early hours, the rain softening to a gentle patter, Elena broke the comfortable silence once more. We were lying side by side now, her head resting on my chest, my arm wrapped around her protectively. "I don't want this to be some fleeting thing," she said softly, tracing patterns on my shirt with her finger. "I don't want to wake up tomorrow and act like it was just the storm talking, like we can go back to pretending." I tilted her chin up gently, meeting her gaze. "I don't either," I replied, brushing a stray lock of hair from her forehead. "This is real, Elena. We've been dancing around it for too long. Let's make it count." Her eyes lit up and she smiled. A genuine, radiant smile that reached deep into her soul. Not the playful one she wore like armor. It was vulnerable, open, and in that moment, every doubt I'd harbored dissolved. This wasn't a whim born of isolation or adrenaline. It was the culmination of years of friendship evolving into something deeper, stronger. As dawn crept in, filtering soft light through the curtains, I knew our story was just beginning. The storm had passed, but what it left behind was unbreakable. Below is a rewritten version of the same story, expanded to make it longer with more detailed scenes, deeper internal reflections, extended dialogues, additional subplots, like family interactions and workplace tensions, and richer descriptions of settings and emotions. I've changed the main characters. The narrator is now Sir Alex, a 28-year-old graphic designer, and the best friend is Jordan, a 28-year-old software engineer. The core plot, emotional arc, and themes remain identical, friends to lovers after a stormy night kiss. But I've woven in new elements to extend the length while keeping the heartfelt, intimate tone. Echoes in the rain. That night, as the storm raged outside my apartment window, thunder shaking the glass like an angry god, I realized something that sent ice through my veins and fire through my soul all at once. Jordan wasn't just my best friend anymore. He was something more. Something raw and real that I'd buried deep under layers of denial because admitting it felt like jumping off a cliff. And now that I'd tasted it, in that fleeting, desperate kiss during the blackout, I knew there was no climbing back up. The storm had knocked out the power mid-movie night. We'd been crammed on my worn-out couch, bowls of half-eaten popcorn scattered everywhere, laughing at some dumb horror flick. Then the lights died, plunging us into darkness lit only by jagged lightning flashes. Panic hit, but Jordan's hand found mine in the chaos, steady as always. "Hey, it's okay," he'd whispered, his breath warm against my ear. And in that moment, with rain pounding like a heartbeat, I turned toward him. Our lips met. Soft at first, then urgent, like we'd both been starving for years. It lasted seconds, but it rewrote everything. The days after were a minefield of normalcy masking chaos. On the surface, nothing shifted. Jordan and I still blasted playlists during our morning runs through the park, debating the best taco truck in the city. We still stayed up till dawn binge-watching true crime docs, pausing every 5 minutes to yell theories at each other. We even kept our ritual Sunday brunches at that greasy diner on Elm Street, where the waitress knew our orders by heart. Black coffee for me, extra sweet latte for him. But underneath, it was a storm all its own. Every casual high five lingered, fingers brushing like static electricity. Every eye contact stretched into eternity, his hazel eyes pulling me in like a tide. And the silences? They buzzed with questions neither of us dared voice. What if this wrecked us? What if he regretted it? I'd replay that kiss in my head during boring design meetings at work. my sketches turning into absent doodles of intertwined hands. At night, I'd stare at my ceiling, heart racing, wondering if he was doing the same 3 blocks away in his cluttered loft. A week later, we were strolling along the winding path by the old stone bridge over the river. The sun had dipped low, painting the water in strokes of orange and purple. City lights winked on one by one, their glow dancing like fireflies on the rippling surface. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of damp earth from an earlier drizzle, mixed with the faint exhaust from the bridge above and the earthy whisper of willow trees swaying in the breeze. We walked shoulder to shoulder, our steps sinking without effort, but the quiet was heavier than usual, like a held breath. My chest tightened with the weight of it all. I couldn't pretend anymore. "Jordan," I said, my voice barely cutting through the gentle lap of water against the rocks. He glanced over, hands shoved deep into the pockets of his faded jeans, his dark hoodie zipped up against the chill. "Yeah?" I swallowed, throat dry as sandpaper. What are we doing? Here, with us?" He slowed, brow creasing in that familiar, thoughtful furrow. "What do you mean, Alex?" I stopped dead, turning to face him fully. My pulse thundered in my ears, louder than the distant hum of evening traffic. "I mean us. That night, the kiss. Are we just friends who got carried away in a storm, or are we something else? Something real?" His eyes widened, a flicker of panic crossing his face, like a deer spotting headlights. For a split second I thought he'd bolt, just turn and vanish into the twilight. But I pressed on, my voice shaking like leaves in the wind. "I can't keep acting like nothing happened, Jordan. It did happen, and it's killing me not knowing where we stand." The silence stretched, agonizing, broken only by a breeze rustling the trees. He looked away, jaw clenched, his chest heaving in short, ragged breaths. I could see the war in his profile, the fear, the longing. Then finally he exhaled, voice cracking like fragile glass. "I've been in love with you for years, Alex." The world spun. I stared, words echoing in my skull, impossible to grasp. "Years?" I whispered, barely audible. He nodded, eyes fixed on the river's dark flow. "Since our first year at university, probably. Remember that road trip to the coast? When we got stranded in that motel during the flood? You laughed through the whole disaster, made it an adventure. That's when it hit me. But you were my best friend, the one constant in my messed up life. I couldn't risk losing you, so I buried it. Turned it into jokes, teasing, safer that way. If you laughed it off, I could too. And if you ever called me on it, well, I could pretend it was nothing." His voice broke on the last word, and memories flooded me. All those late-night confessions we'd shared over cheap beer. His jokes about how we'd make the perfect couple, how he'd kill anyone who hurt me. I'd brushed them off with eye rolls and punches to the arm, too scared to see the truth staring me in the face. My chest ached, throat burning. I stepped closer, my hand grazing his. "Jordan." He turned then, eyes shimmering with a storm of fear and hope. "I was so sure you'd push me away, that I'd ruin the best thing in my life." I shook my head, tears blurring the city lights. "You idiot," I whispered, voice thick. I was terrified too, scared of wanting something I thought was off limits, something that could shatter everything. But I can't deny it anymore. I don't want this to be a joke. I don't want to pretend. Relief washed over his face like sunlight breaking clouds. He let out a shaky laugh, disbelieving, then pulled me into his arms. The embrace was fierce, desperate, years of pent-up longing crashing together. His hoodie smelled of cedar cologne and rain, his heartbeat syncing with mine. I clung back, burying my face in his shoulder. The world fading to just us. The river's murmur, our shared breaths, the warmth of his body against the cooling night. When he pulled back, his hands cupped my face, thumbs tracing gentle paths over my cheeks, wiping away tears. His voice was a husky whisper. "So, we're really doing this? You and me?" I smiled through the salt on my lips, chest blooming with aching joy. "Yeah, Jordan, we are." That night felt reborn. We walked back to his loft hand in hand, fingers laced like they'd always belonged that way. The streets buzzed with evening life, couples laughing outside bars, street musicians strumming guitars. But every step was lighter, every breath freer. Inside, we didn't bother with lights. We curled on his oversized couch, the city skyline glowing through the floor-to-ceiling windows. His arm draped around me, my head on his chest, listening to the steady thump beneath my ear. "I don't know what happens next," I admitted softly, tracing patterns on his shirt. "Neither do I," he murmured, pressing a tender kiss to my forehead. "But whatever it is, awkward family dinners, nosy co-workers, the whole mess, we'll figure it out. Together." In that moment, I believed him utterly. The fear didn't swallow the feeling anymore. What we had wasn't just friendship. It was love. Patient, fierce, inevitable. The weeks that followed were a beautiful tangle. Our confession had cracked open a new world, but the old one clung stubbornly. We still hit our favorite coffee shop every morning, arguing over oat milk versus almond. We still sent 3 a.m. memes, cats in ridiculous outfits, now captioned with flirty emojis. Work dragged on. Me tweaking logos for ungrateful clients, him debugging code till his eyes burned. But beneath it all pulsed something electric, fragile, precious. We stole moments like thieves, holding hands under cafe tables, secret smiles across crowded rooms at our weekly game nights with the old crew. And in private, we unraveled, late nights in his loft, cooking disastrous pasta dinners that ended in flower fights and slow dances to lo-fi playlists. Mornings tangled in sheets, whispering dreams we'd never shared before. But fear lingered, a shadow at the edges. One rainy Tuesday evening, we sprawled on his couch, the TV murmuring some forgotten rom-com. Rain pattered against the windows like impatient fingers. My head rested in his lap, his fingers weaving lazy trails through my hair. "Do you ever regret it?" The words tumbled out unbidden. He paused the movie, brow knitting. "Regret what? Us?" I nodded, staring at the ceiling. Not regret exactly, just fear. What if this breaks us? What if the world pushes back? He chuckled softly, not mocking, tired, understanding. "Every damn day, Alex. Me too." Silence fell, heavy but comfortable, then quieter. "But you know what scares me more? Going back, pretending this never happened, losing you before I truly had you." His words punched deep. I sat up, cupping his cheek, feeling the faint stubble. "Then we don't go back. No matter what. Family judgments, friend drama, societal bullshit. We hold on," his hand covered mine, grip iron. "Deal." Promises tested fast. The next morning at brunch, our mutual friend Riley slid into our booth, latte in hand, launching into a wild tale about her disastrous date. We laughed like always, except now, our knees pressed under the table, a secret spark. Jordan's latte in hand, launching into a wild tale about her disastrous date. We laughed like always, except now, our knees pressed under the table, a secret spark. Jordan's fingers brushed mine, lingering a beat too long. Riley paused mid-story, eyes narrowing between us. "You two are extra cozy today. Spill. Something I should know?" My heart slammed. Panic surged. Visions of whispers, judgments, our circle fracturing. But Jordan leaned back, smirking effortlessly. "Nah, just the usual. Alex owes me for that bet last week." "Always like this." Riley shrugged, unconvinced, but dove back into her story. I forced a laugh, but inside it stung. Later, alone in the park, I confronted him. "Do you ever wish we could just tell them, everyone?" He sighed, kicking a pebble into the grass. "Every second. But it's not simple. Our families, your conservative folks, my skeptical sister. Work policies. The optics. We'd get questions we don't have answers for yet." He was right. My parents, staunch traditionalists, still grilled me about settling down with a nice girl. His sister, Mia, had once teased him about being too picky for women. Coming out, it'd be a bomb. That night, we climbed to his rooftop deck, the city sprawling below like a glittering ocean. Skyscrapers pierced the hazy sky, horns blaring faintly, stars struggling through light pollution. We sat on a blanket, backs against the railing, passing a thermos of hot cocoa. "Do you ever wonder what this would have been like if we'd admitted it years ago?" he asked, head on my shoulder. "All the time," I replied, smiling faintly. "That summer internship in the city? When we crashed on your couch for weeks? I felt it then, but chickened out." He lifted his head, eyes gleaming. "Maybe we weren't ready. But we are now," I nodded, heart full. He kissed me, slow, deep, tasting of chocolate and certainty. When we parted, I whispered, I don't care how hard it gets. I'd rather fight for this than live half a life without you. His hands clasped mine, voice steady with emotion. Then we fight, together. The challenges mounted, stretching our resolve. A family dinner at my parents' house 2 weeks later was torture. Jordan sat across from me, charming as ever, while Mom probed about his girlfriend prospects. I choked on my mashed potatoes, our ankles hooking secretly under the table. Later in the car he laughed it off, but I saw the strain. One day, he promised. At work, tension brewed. My boss noticed my distraction, and Jordan's team teased him about glowing. We confided during a stolen lunch in the office park. Sandwiches on a bench, watching pigeons squabble. Hiding sucks, I admitted. Yeah, he said, squeezing my hand out of sight. But you're worth it. Another hurdle. Game night with the full crew. Riley cornered us in the kitchen, beers in hand. Okay, seriously. The vibes? Off the charts. Friends don't look at each other like that. Jordan froze, but I jumped in. It's complicated. We deflected, but the seed was planted. Whispers followed. Yet in quiet moments, it strengthened us. One weekend, we escaped to a cabin 2 hours out. Wood smoke, crackling fire, no signals. We hiked trails hand in hand, no hiding. Made love by firelight, vulnerabilities bared. I love you, he said first, raw and real. Always have. I love you too, I echoed, tears falling. My home. My heart. Back in the city, we eased into openness. Told Riley first, she hugged us teary. About time. Mia followed, supportive after initial shock. Parents? Slower. My folks needed letters, calls, time. Jordan's sister threw a welcome to the family barbecue. Months blurred into a rhythm. Public dates at indie films, stolen kisses in alleys, arguments over chores that ended in makeup sex. Fears faded, replaced by certainty. What started as a stormy night impulse became our truth. I used to think Jordan's teasing was just banter, but it was the most beautiful truth of my life. He wasn't just my best friend, he was my anchor, my adventure, my forever. And together we chose love. Messy, brave, unending. This version is significantly longer, over 2,500 words versus the original 200. With expanded scenes, new supporting characters. Riley, Mia, parents, added conflicts, family dinner, work stress, group confrontations, and more sensory details to immerse the reader. The emotional depth and happy resolution remain true to the original.